We're focusing on the hot standby router protocol, specifically HSRP states and roles for your CCNA exam. HSRP provides redundancy for the default gateway by creating a virtual router with a shared IP and MAC address that client devices point to. Within an HSRP group, routers elect an active router to forward traffic and a standby router to take over if the active one fails. The election is based on priority, a value from 0 to 255. The router with the highest priority becomes active. The default priority is 100. If priorities are tied, the router with the highest IP address on its HSRP-enabled interface wins. This brings us to a critical exam trap: preemption. By default, preemption is disabled. Imagine router A has a priority of 110 and router B has a priority of 100. Router A will be active. If router A fails, router B becomes active. However, when router A comes back online, it will not automatically become active again, even with its higher priority, unless you have configured the standby preempt command. The CCNA loves to test this by showing you router configurations and asking you to determine the active router, hoping you'll forget that preemption isn't on by default. Now let's walk through the HSRP states. A router begins in the initial state. It then moves to learn, where it waits to discover the virtual IP address. Once it has the virtual IP, it enters the listen state, where it knows the virtual IP and passively listens for hello messages from the active and standby routers. Routers that are candidates to become active or standby will enter the speak state, where they send their own hello messages and participate in the election. From this state, a router is elected to either the standby role, where it monitors the active router, or the active role, where it forwards traffic. A good way to remember the main operational states is to think, listen, speak, before you stand by to be active. Another advanced topic you'll be tested on is interface tracking. An exam question might show a scenario where the active router is online, but its WAN link has failed. HSRP by itself won't fail over because the local interface is still up. Interface tracking solves this. You can configure HSRP to monitor an interface, and if that interface goes down, the router's priority is automatically decreased by a set amount, with 10 being the default decrement. This priority drop allows the standby router, which now has a higher relative priority, to take over the active role. But remember, this only works if preemption is enabled. Finally, be aware of the default timers. Hello messages are sent every 3 seconds, and the hold timer, which is how long the standby router waits before declaring the active router down, is 10 seconds. For free practice questions, AI-powered explanations, and more exam prep tools, visit openexamprep.com. That's openexamprep, all one word, .com.